When did your relationship with SPRO start, with the Chad Shad, and how did it actually happen?
Around 2021 over a phone call with us.
So did you reach out to SPRO? Did SPRO reach out to you? Was it because of KGB? What did lead to that phone call?
Hook shortage, COVID. It's funny, for something so bad for the whole world actually led to one of the greatest things for me was meeting the guys at SPRO. I called Gamakatsu to get hooks.
Okay.
I couldn't get the hooks I'd been using. Called Gamakatsu to get hooks. Pretty much placed the order over the phone. And at the end, he asked for my email, and I said, well, it's KGB Swimbaits, you know. And he said, wait, I know who you are. I've got some of your baits. And just that quick, he said, hey, do you want to do a collaboration? And I've said this story before, but to me, it was really funny at the time. I had a bunch of painters wanting to collaborate, and I was overwhelmed. And so immediately my answer was no. If I heard the word collaboration, my answer was no. And so I told him no, and he kind of laughed. And about 5 minutes later of talking fishing and stuff like that, that replayed in my head, and I was like, well, wait, what did I? So I asked him, can you repeat that? What does this look like? And we started the whole process. And
right place, right time.
Yeah, it's crazy how much traction it's gained, how much support it had. It's something that's different, at least in the swim bait industry, to see a garage builder and a mega corporation work together instead of just getting ripped off. That's I think we had so much support in that alone that's why a lot of people are, not only is it a good bait, but the story behind it, the fact that we're working together, you don't see that very often. And when you do, people support it. One thing that is really cool about working with SPRO is I design all the paint jobs here in-house. They send me blanks. We've got some new stuff that we're working on too, but it's how well they match. So this is one of them that I painted here in-house in my own paint booth. My hands painted this, and I've got paint splattered all over it, so I ended up keeping this one. But this is one from their factory, and you can see how close that is. They dialed back, they did some of the things I asked, which was dial back the blood splotches on this northern perch. I went a little heavier than what I intended to, so I asked them to dial it back, but everything else is so matched. Right there, if it doesn't have that, that's because I did it. Here, another example is a shad. Now I kept this one because I messed up on part of it. Sent the good one. Usually when I paint, I'll paint 3 or 4 and pick the best one to send to them because that's what they're going to copy. But you can see how close this is. This one actually got back from SPRO as a sample, and you can tell, other than this one being butchered, how good they did matching it.
So I hate to say this, but I do not know. Did you have the Chad Shad, or was it 100% created for SPRO?
Already had it. The Chad Shad was a bait that was already really popular, successful. It was my best seller, and I knew going into SPRO, if I want to do something, I want it to be a home run. And so I took what was and it was risky, I took what was my best producing bait and pretty much handed the keys over to SPRO and said, here you go. But I'm also still making that bait. We changed it a little bit since then, but we already had the bait, handed it off to SPRO.
So essentially they took your resin bait and created a plastic bait now that they can build much more efficiently and more inexpensive, so there's a lot more people that are going to get their hands on the
Exactly.
baits.
The bait was so hard to get, people were getting mad, they were missing out on the handmade stuff when SPRO, you know, that whole timing was just perfect, and so you know what, this is my most successful bait, let's do this together. And so through collaboration, they didn't just take it and copy it. There's a lot of back and forth that you and I know about the behind the scenes, but there's a lot of back and forth. It took almost a year to get the bait right, but they did.
So, you know, basically when you first started working with SPRO creating the Chad Shad, I mean, what was your goal and what were you looking for in that specific bait?
My main goal was to bring my most successful and popular bait to a production level. My biggest concern was I knew how in demand my baits were. I mean, they were selling secondhand, you know, the black market industry and all that stuff. They were selling for 2x, 3x what I'm paying for them. So if I bring this to mass production, it needed to be quality. I couldn't go in with something that's going to end up at the bargain bin at Walmart. And don't mean that in any offensive way. I can't have that while giving it the name of something that's selling for $200 to $300. So quality and production capability, those two things were my main goals that had to be met. And when I got the samples, they met that.
Did you feel like it was going to be as big a hit as it truly has become?
In hindsight, looking back, you know, yes, but at the time I was a little naive to how big it was going to be. I'd never been to ICAST. I'd never seen, you know, some of these shows that we go to. I didn't realize how big of an impact it would have. I was very hopeful for it. You know, fingers crossed the whole time. Let's do this thing, and you know, I'm thrilled with how it's going.